Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have an extra special guest. It's somebody who means a lot to me. He was actually my Ableton trainer who taught me Ableton from day one back in 2013 at Dubspot. His name is Kiva, and he is an absolute wizard when it comes to Ableton Live and my sensei. I love this dude. We talk about a lot of really interesting things, so make sure you listen through the entire podcast. If you don't know Kiva, he's an artist, multi-instrumentalist, producer, Ableton Certified Trainer, and owner of Adios Babylon Records. He founded his record label in 2004 in New York City and released numerous albums and has produced and remixed for tons of underground soul, hip-hop, reggae, dub, and dance artists. He's released on labels such as Adios Babylon, King Tubby's Dub Heritage Foundation, Haze St Dub, Destroy All Concepts, Galaxy Soundstation, Tommy Boy, and Kindred Spirits. He's also shared stages and worked with artists such as Lee Scratch Perry, the legend, Jay-Z, Shaggy, Midnite, Pressure, Busspipe, Kode 9, Joe Nice, RSD, and many other artists. He is a world-renowned Ableton Certified Trainer with over 15 years teaching music production to over 7,000 plus students worldwide. Once again, this is an extra special episode. Make sure you give Kiva a follow on the socials and wherever you can connect with them, and check out his website, Adios Babylon. There's links in the show notes. So big shout out to Kiva for joining this episode. Much love to you, man. And before we jump into the episode, just want to give you a quick reminder. If you would like, subscribe, or leave a review wherever you're listening to the podcast, it would help me out a lot and I'd super appreciate it. Especially on Spotify, if you leave a little review. If you don't hate the podcast, that would be great. If you want to be the first to get new episodes when they come out every 2 weeks right now on Tuesdays, and you also want to get some bonus content and maybe some free Ableton Live downloads and stuff, join the newsletter. And you can do that by going to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Once again, liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Thanks everybody for listening, and now for this great episode with Kiva. Dude, it's so good to see your face again. It's been since 2013.
True, maybe even like before that when we first met.
Well, I took your class at Dubspot in New York City in 2013.
Okay.
And that started, I think, in like January or something. I just remember it was hella cold in New York City. But I had to be honest, man. I've had the privilege of having a lot of really talented, amazing artists and guests on this podcast, but this one is extra special to me because if it wasn't for you in that class, like I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today and even hosting this podcast.
That's amazing, man. Much respect, man. I've been seeing you put in work, you know. So did you not become an Ableton certified trainer yourself?
I did, yeah.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. January of 2020. I was like, this is gonna be the best year ever. I just got certified.
Little did you know.
Yeah, little did I know. 2020.
It's been interesting though, actually, like, you know, looking at the silver lining of it all. There's been so many like advancements made with like being able to do online teaching.
Yeah.
Elevated it way beyond like what I was already doing for years with previous clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like, you know, a significant part of what I do, you know, is, you know, teaching people from different places around the world.
Yeah.
Using Zoom and using all these other things that are available to us now. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of a weird, bittersweet thing. I feel like a lot of people had maybe a little extra time to make music because they were stuck at home in their studios all day. And but yeah, like teaching online is just like so normalized now, even more so than it's ever been. For sure.
Save on that gas money right now.
That's right. Exactly. But yeah, dude, I mean, New York City, that was an amazing school, and like you were definitely one of the best teachers I've ever had when it comes to any music production, anything.
Oh, respect.
So yeah, it was good memories. I think about the highlights of my life. That was definitely by far at the top.
Yeah, that there was definitely you know, some magic in the air. That was like definitely like a golden era for me of my New York years as well too. Is just the right combination of everybody. You had all the right people coming together to run the business and run the school, and you just had like all these incredible people coming to learn, you know, and meet each other. It's an exciting period of time, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, that was a very frustrating and like inspiring moment for me because I was learning Ableton Live for the first time. It was really the first DAW I went all in on. then I would go home and try to wrap my brain about, like, after learning 3 hours of stuff getting thrown at us. And then I
Oh,
would just
wow.
spend all night learning, go back to
Yeah.
school, do it all over again. I think we started in that class with, I think there was like 12 students, and by the end there was like 4 of us. But it had nothing to do with you or the teaching or anything like
Yeah.
that. It was just, I think people underestimate the learning curve and how much work it takes to
Yeah.
produce and to do a good job producing and learning a software like Ableton Live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For what it's worth, too, I can understand from the student's perspective, too. Like, when they signed up for an intensive class, like, it's intense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like joining the Marine Corps. The first day, everybody thinks they're going to be a Marine. And by like halfway through
Right.
the week, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. I'm going home.
Yeah, exactly. A couple broken arms and limbs.
Oh, man.
I went to my first New York party, New York City party with you. We went to see JoJo Mayer at a club
Oh, the
downtown.
drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Nerve.
Nerve.
Mm.
That was mind blowing. It was literally JoJo on like a 3-piece kit and a DJ. And the room you
Think I
could barely
remember
see.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You could barely see your hands in front of your face because the room was so dark. There was no
Yeah.
big production. They were in the middle of the room, this tiny little club. And it was one of the sickest shows I've seen. Like, they tore it up. There was maybe like 50 people there.
Yeah. I think that was like in the Lower East Side. I can't remember
Yeah,
what spot it was, but yeah, I believe that
yeah,
was like Lower East Side. I remember like I think we bumped into JoJo after the show too, and
yeah. He
you
was a
know,
wild dude. If
yeah,
anybody out there
mm,
hasn't heard of Nerve or JoJo, especially as a drummer, like, you're in for a treat. Yeah, we went to Brooklyn afterwards. There was some like warehouse party. I don't remember the whole night because it was a really good time, but we went to Brooklyn and I walked up. It was like, it was this big warehouse, but like this long hallways. If you ever seen the Matrix movie where it's just like door after door in this empty hall, and just knock on some door and open it up, and there was this club of maybe like 300 people packed in this room, just throwing paint on the walls and on each other. It was like a warehouse rave. And somebody just hands me a cup of paint. And like, I don't remember a whole lot of the rest of the night, but it was a great time. It was, you introduced me to my first New York City party experience.
hey, at
It
least
was
it was a
amazing.
good party, you know.
It was. No, it
There
was
was a few
fun.
nights in New York I wound up in some spot. I was like, yo, I've stepped into like the pits of hell, man.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there were some good ones, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah. You never really know what you're gonna get sometimes in New York. But anyway, man, I have you on this podcast because I want to learn more about you and introduce you to more people. First of all, congrats on your newest album, Seven Heavens. It was really
Appreciate
dope.
that. Give thanks. Give
Yeah.
thanks.
I listened to it twice this week, the whole
Ah,
way through.
thank you, man. Thank you. Glad you
Yeah,
feel the vibe. It's
it's a
it's a
vibe.
different kind of album. Yep.
There's a lot of good energy in there. I encourage anybody to go listen to it and check out the links in the show notes too. I'll include that. But yeah, I mean, what got you into music in the first place, and maybe share some of your background, and then leading up how you got into Ableton Live.
Yeah. So, I probably told this story a few times other places before, but I come from a household with a lot of creative people in my family, my aunts and uncles, parents, brother and sisters. And growing up, my father and two of my uncles in particular were always hanging out and playing music together, playing guitars. They were playing a little bit of like bluegrass and folk, little jazz. I don't even remember this, but my mom said when I was 2 years old, I'd be sitting in the kitchen with these guys and I'd just take a building block across my leg and pretend it was a guitar and try to strum along on the block.
Nice.
I don't even remember this, but she was showing me in the baby book. I was like, oh dang, I was into this from the very beginning. So,
Yeah,
a
good
little bit later
roots.
in life, I started sneaking in my dad's room when he'd be at work and play his guitar while he'd be at work and try to put the strap back exactly the way it was so I wouldn't get in trouble. And one day, he cornered me. He's like, "You been playing my guitar?" And I was scared. I thought I was busted. And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Oh, you want to learn how to play?" And I was like, "Yeah." And by that time, I was big enough where I could hold the instrument. And he started showing me some of my first chords. That got me going. And then, I have an uncle, my Uncle James, rest in peace. He was really into people like Santana, Hendrix. He had a massive jazz collection. He was into people like Charlie Christians and, some of these other like jazz greats from back in the day. So
Yeah,
anyhow, he put me onto some jazz stuff and showed me like some real nice licks on the guitar, and we play a lot. And that really helped me like start to wrap my head around the instrument. Then at the same time, this is back in the 80s. So there's like all this heavy metal stuff going on. So like I'm learning how to do some Eddie Van Halen tapping and sweep picking and like all this like crazy, Guitar Hero type stuff. And got pretty good
Nice.
at it by around like junior high. But at the same time, like I had got exposed to synths and drum machines back around like 84. So one of my aunts had picked up like an early synthesizer slash sampler. Got to play around on that. Some older kid in my community had got the Roland Juno 106, and his parents were friends with mine. I got to hold his keyboard for a month while they were on vacation, and I was like, man, I don't even know what any of this stuff means, but I like it. So yeah, I just dove in, man. I started DJing too around junior high too. I had no idea how to use turntables or anything properly. I was just the dude that had a lot of music. So they're like, oh, you got to DJ the school dance. I don't know.
Nice.
Like I tried my hand at sports, you know what I'm saying? I played basketball with the school for a couple years, man. And we'd be out there like practicing for hours and hours, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And by the time the season ends, you'd have like 2 minutes of playing time for like the whole season. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, bump this. Like I'm gonna stick with this music thing.
Y- Yeah. There's a lot less injuries in being a music student than there is playing basketball.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So it just ended up being the thing that it shaped my life and continues to be like the guiding light through life. You know what I'm saying? Like I still have the same enthusiasm for it now, decades later, that I did when I first started. And there's always something new to learn. There's always another song that needs to be written. That's just it, man. It's what I came here to do,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I feel that too. There's
Mm-hmm.
always something new to learn. I think that's what makes the greats great. People who have that mentality of just continuing to press into their passions and finding ways to develop it and get better and better and learn,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good background. So at what point did you eventually get into Ableton Live? Like you grew up, you were like the DJ, music student kind of kid. Where did that lead you?
All right. So I had some basic little equipment when everything was still basically hardware studios in the 90s. So I had a little synthesizer, little drum machine, little 4-track, and I'd make some little tapes and things. I don't know if they were that good, but that's where I got started with it. By the time the late 90s rolled around, you had a lot of great software come around that could take the place of hardware studio stuff. So programs like Reason, Cubase, and stuff like that. Like when I started working with them, I'm like, oh, this is cool. It looks like the stuff I'm used to working with, and it can do a lot more. So I have been working primarily with Reason and Cubase to make a lot of my early albums. And right when Ableton dropped, this older producer friend of mine had me by his studio, and there's a couple of German dudes in there chain smoking cigarettes and this techno music coming out of the studio. And my friend's telling me, he's like, Kiva, this is the future. This is Ableton Live. And like, okay, cool. But
It's a good friend.
a couple decades later, here I am, like, it's been like a major part of, my musical journey. I was aware of it right from the beginning, but in the beginning, Ableton wasn't really that great. Like a lot of things, it's a good idea, but it's like phase one.
Yeah.
Sound quality wasn't like on par with some of the other programs I used, and it was pretty limited, but I was aware that existed. And I want to say probably around version 2 or 3, I actually started to find a need for it. Like I was doing some remix work for the nephew of the late, great dub pioneer, King Tubby's, my man,
Yeah.
Digital Tubby's, aka Digital K. Also rest in peace. Dubbing it from
Yeah.
above.
You introduced me to him in
Yeah.
class, actually. We listened to a lot of his music.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But so anyway, Digital asked me to remix a Tubby's track, and they just had like the stereo mix down from like 1973. It wasn't even stems, and I wanted to like relick it, but with like modern drums and other things on top of it. And it was a live drummer, so the tempo is like fluctuating. It like speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And trying to do it in the programs that I was working with, it would have taken me like all year. You had to go like bar by bar and manually time stretch each bar to get it to flow right. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is too much work. Let me give Ableton another shot. I had one homie that was already working with Ableton, and he showed me like how you could warp and put warp markers and fix timing up. And you know, instead of taking like months to fix this whole track up, like I want to say like within like an hour or two, I had the whole thing like perfectly like, you know, syncopated to an even tempo, and I was able to complete that remix. And that was when I started to really take Ableton more seriously, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, another version or two later, they added MIDI. They got the sound engine like on par with the competition, and everything else about the workflow was just so intuitive, and it just replaced the need for like two or three other pieces of software in this one program. And that was it. I switched over. I want to say around like version 4 or 5. Just quit opening those other programs. They're great programs, by the way. They sound great. They're really cool.
Yeah.
But for me, like it just made more sense just to do it all in this one spot. So pretty much from about like Ableton 5 forward, I think like pretty much everything I produce has been like in the Ableton platform.
I mean, for good reasons. I mean, I played with Logic and I played with Pro Tools before I took your class at Dubspot,
Mm.
and I just felt like part of my soul was missing because I was like, I was like, I want to be able to do more remixes and live performance, and that's when I found one of the videos you made on YouTube.
Oh, cool, cool.
Uh, that was my first introduction to Ableton Live. So similar reasons, I guess, as far as like warping the audio and things like that. I was trying to figure out how to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, man. I was just gonna say, like, you know, a lot of things in life I'm self-taught at, mainly out of necessity. Maybe there wasn't the resources around to learn certain things. So I'm like, I just had to figure it out. Or you meet one or two
yeah,
people that are maybe into something that you're trying to learn, and they can teach you one or two things, and that gets you started. But you know, the progress can be real slow. And one of the cool things about a structured class or school is, you know, being able to like just get the concentrated knowledge like laid out in the order that it makes sense to learn something, instead of being on YouTube for like a month. Like the first
right.
video you look at is like a beginner one, the next one's like some ninja level stuff, and it can be really
Yeah,
confusing when you're trying to learn stuff and it's all out of sequence, you know?
yeah, yeah. And you have to watch like 5 minutes of ads before you actually get to watch the video, and then the
Right.
guy just
Yeah.
plays his track for another 5 minutes before he explains anything, and
Yeah.
then yeah, struggle can be real.
No doubt.
Yeah. So you got into Ableton Live, like what you said, like version 2, and then just kind of evolved with it from there.
More or less,
And
yeah. Maybe like,
yeah,
you know, like I said, I saw it when the first version came out. To tell you the truth, like somebody had slid me a copy of it. I thought it didn't work because I recorded into arrangement view and everything was grayed out. Nobody told me you got to press that little button. Like I literally I put that program down for a whole year. I'm like, man, this thing's broken, man. This don't even work. Let me go back to Cubase. And then finally I
yeah.
met somebody else that used Ableton, and he's like, oh, you just have to hit that button. I was like, oh, you kidding me, man. That's it.
I think that's happened to everybody at least once. I guarantee it.
Yeah, like I literally lost like a year of production at Ableton because of that one feature.
That's really funny. Oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
man.
Another reason to take a class, have somebody show you that. Yeah, you saved me a lot of headaches for 4 months for
Oh,
sure.
nice, nice, man.
Yeah.
Glad I could help.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when we were in class, the push one was coming out at the end of class.
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we got to demo it early. I think
Yeah.
you got like a push before it was released or something. We were playing with it in class. I was like, man, look at all these buttons.
Was it
And it's
Push
come
or was
along.
it, APC 40? Actually, both
It
of
was
them
a
came out
push.
around the same time, yeah.
Yeah, we were using the old APC 40, like
Yeah.
the first
The
gen,
MK1,
which
yeah.
yeah, you could throw that thing off a bridge and it wouldn't break.
Yeah, I still love that thing actually for performing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah, I ended up selling it and got the MK2,
Mhm.
but I kind of missed the original.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the newer one is you're not limited to 3 sends to quickly switch over.
True, true.
Uh, so now you have like what, 8 cents, whatever that number that is,
Yeah.
or letter
Yeah.
G.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, so that, I mean, and the crossfader on the old one was like, that thing was a tank. The new crossfader, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people have broken their MK2 APC crossfaders.
Dude, that's what happened to me too. I have the MK2 as well. And if you look on the bottom of the MK1, it's got easy access right there. You can change that crossfader. You can just
Yeah,
swap it out. It's like two screws, one clip, done.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I had to disassemble a MK2 one time. It's a nightmare getting that thing back together. There's
Uh,
all these little plastic clips that flew everywhere. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get this thing back together again. And a lot of the stuff is
no.
like just soldered in the board, and you got to desolder things to like change anything in there.
Oh man. It's almost like somebody in the corporate and Akae was like, we can make a little more money if we
Maybe I don't know, man.
I don't
Yeah.
know. But that opened my mind to a whole new workflow in the studio and for live performance with the APC.
Mm,
And I know that's like your controller of choice. You're like a wizard on that thing.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, there's something about that one. I have the MK2 and I've got the Push 2. Don't get it wrong, like they're both great controllers and there's like certain features that each one has that I really like. But I
Mm,
feel like Push, for example, I know that there's some people that perform with the Push 2 and do cool things that suits their workflow and their style. For me, I like Push 2 for certain things in the studio, but it doesn't really translate to the way that I perform. And so some
mm.
of those other controllers are better, like the original Akai MK1. Like I just connected with it and have it mapped out, custom mapped a certain way that like it's like an extension of my creativity, and I just don't get the same like flavor or connection with some of the other controllers I've tried,
Yeah,
for performing, that is. So,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I only use push as like a beat pad or just to play instruments when it
Mhm,
comes to live. I usually use it with my APC for the same reason. Like
mhm,
I'd much rather use the push I think in the studio personally,
mhm.
more for production. It just makes sense for my workflow and there's other people out there that use push live and that's great, but
Yeah,
I'm similar with that too.
yeah.
Well, I'd love to talk about your creative process. I mean, you've made a lot of great tracks. I mean, you've worked with I don't know how many thousands of people teaching and co-producing and writing, and I'd love to learn more. And I'm sure a lot of people here could learn a lot from your creative process.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, man.
so I don't know if anything comes to mind in that. We talked about that through the email earlier, but maybe some like key takeaways with producing that you normally share with students. Like,
Mm,
is there anything that comes to mind?
alright. So, I'd say, like, the number one thing is whenever you learn anything new creatively, a lot of the time you start by being inspired by your heroes, whoever that means to you. You know what I'm saying? Like when you learn to play guitar, maybe you got a couple people that you look up to. I mentioned like somebody like Jimi Hendrix or Carlos Santana. Like, start learning a couple of their songs and get started somewhere. Same thing goes for music production. Like most people, when they first start producing, maybe they're into a certain house producer or a hip hop producer or reggae producer, whatever they're into. So as they first start to get it together, it's very common for a lot of people's early tracks to sound exactly like their heroes. That's to be expected. But the thing I wanted to say is that that's a good place to start. And it's good to have your different influences. But ultimately, you want to find your own voice and your own unique style. Everybody's unique. So, one thing that troubles me right now is it's so easy to get, the same loop libraries from different places like Splice or Loop Master or whoever.
Yeah.
You can get like different software that will create like the same like used chord progressions and melodies and things that have been used by a lot of people already. And I feel like it's making some budding producers right now, like, I don't want to say get lazy, but they're not like finding their own style. Like they're just like
Right.
too content to recreate what's already been done, whatever
Yeah.
that style is. Like, you're into house, man. There's a lot of great house out there, but there's like so much of it that it can't all be good. Like some of it is like very mediocre at best. And
Yeah.
but then when you look back to the roots and you look at some of the innovators, like they were the first ones to do that stuff. So it was real fresh, you know? Same thing like
Mhm.
in reggae and dub, like, some of those innovators, they were the first ones to do it. They did it in a certain time, certain life experience they were having in a particular place. And so it's already been done. And so to just try to like emulate your heroes, for me as an artist, like that would be fraudulent. You know what I'm saying? I've had like a different life experience and a unique life experience. So I'm going to see the world a certain way, and my music's going to reflect that. You're going to be able to hear influences in it. But I hope that whenever I'm doing any kind of project, like there's something about it that is like intangible, but you can be like, yeah, that's Kiva. That's his style. That's a fresh sound. So I guess like
Yeah.
for all the new producers, keep pushing and like find your own voice, and don't be afraid to like color outside the lines. Don't be too quick to pigeonhole yourself into like whatever scene is really popular right now, because stick
Mm.
around long enough and whatever is like the hottest thing in the underground or the hottest thing on the pop charts right now, 5 years from now, some of those same people that are being put on a pedestal, they're gonna be like the butt of everybody's jokes. They're gonna be laughing about some of them and be like, "Oh, you still
Yeah.
listen to them?" I've seen it happen. Like it just like it's
Yeah.
just pop culture just like eats things up and then they throw it away.
Yeah.
And the underground does the same thing too. There's a lot of producers that might have been like really innovative and inspired a whole tidal wave of music. And then like, in that underground, it moves real fast. Like give it like 3 to 5 years and the underground's gonna be onto something else. So all you
Mm.
can do is just make sure that whatever you write is like original and from the heart. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid to tell different stories. Yeah, you can write like a club banger track and that's a vibe, right? But music is infinite and you can tell any story in life, from like the most tragic situation to like the most like victorious celebratory type things that can happen. There's a song for everything. You can write a song. So don't limit yourself and don't be afraid to expose yourself as an artist and really write music from your heart and your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's well said. I feel like you could just write a book off of exactly what you just said. There's a lot of books out there too, but I
Yeah, somebody
love
probably did already.
but I mean, that's a real thing. I mean,
Hmm.
in my experience and all the conversations I've had on this podcast, I feel like creating the music and whatever you define as successful for yourself, like a lot of it is just a mental game
Hmm.
that it's just where's your head space at
Hmm.
as you're creating. And if you're in a good headspace, then you'll probably yield better results in the end and be much happier
Yeah.
with your creativity. If you're stressed and you're trying to be just like, Tiesto, or you're trying to be just like, all these other artists,
Hmm.
whether the world doesn't really need another one of those. So like create for you and create something,
Yeah.
but draw from that inspiration. I don't know if you know Ill Factor. He was on the podcast a while ago, but he talked about the difference between influence and inspiration.
Mm.
And it was really good because kind of like what you were saying too, is like drawing that inspiration from other artists or being inspired in the moment by a certain sound from Splice, but you don't maybe necessarily only use samples. Maybe you create your own sample, but you're inspired from that sample sound.
Mm.
You create something original from that sound.
Hmm.
Maybe you take that sound, you manipulate it into something completely different, and that sound inspired you to create your own original interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And then getting your influence from other people without trying to be exactly like them.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he was
Yeah.
talking about and what I heard you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, take like a legendary artist like Prince, for example. Okay, like when Prince hit the scene, his music, the way he did his hair, the way he dressed, you could see his influences. Be like, okay, he's inspired by Lil Richard, Jimi Hendrix, James Brown. Those are like his three probably top influences. And you can see bits and pieces of all three of those guys in his whole stage persona and the music that he made. And yet he took it and made it something different and unique too, where you can hear his influences and you can see it in the style, and yet he did something totally unique to the point where he could be playing jazz, he could be playing rock, he could be playing funk. Like as soon as you hear like certain chords or a certain drum pattern, be like, oh, this feels like a Prince track before he even starts singing. So
Yeah.
that's like a very like, high example right there. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's where it's at. Like, we stand on the shoulders of greats and you want to like be inspired by that, but ultimately push beyond and don't just try to be a carbon copy. You can't.
Mm.
It's already been done. Make it your
Yeah.
own. You got your own unique life story to tell through music.
Yep.
Hmm.
Exactly, man. Well said. There's a documentary I mentioned in a recent episode called Everything is a Remix. It's on YouTube. It's like a
Mhm.
free. You could watch it. It's 25 minutes. Have you seen that?
No. What was it called again?
It's called Everything is a Remix. But it's wild. They basically go through and they take all these examples from like the Rolling Stones to like videographers and directors and all musicians from all over the world from like the
Mhm.
50s. And they say that people basically just took an idea and then made something really famous out of it, like their own original work, but it was never their original work.
Mhm.
They basically created it from another melody line, or they stole the lyrics from somebody from like 5
Mm.
decades ago that nobody knew about and
Ah.
then made it famous. And
Mm.
it's really fascinating. There's a lot of examples in there where you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that that melody line was already written, but like in a rock and roll song, but now it's like a hip hop track that went
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a vast subject right there because we're at a certain point it's like, okay, you want to honor some music, maybe come up with a creative way of flipping a piece of music in a sample in a new creative way that's
Mm.
creative and unique and beautiful. Um, for me, there's always like a question of like appropriation or just not giving the credit where it's due that can sometimes happen in there where,
Yeah.
people just be like, oh, wow, like this artist is so great. And if you actually know the music, you're like, well, hold up. Like he just found like this blues artist that got like jerked over by the labels back in the 50s and
Yep.
died in poverty and now this cat is like making all this money off it. Like whenever possible, like I feel like it's great to do anything you want creatively, but there has to be like a certain amount of like ethics and
Yeah.
accountability and just make sure like giving the credit where it's due. And if somebody's gonna eat off it and this artist is still alive, like he should be able to eat off it too, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. People who work hard at their craft and art, I think, deserve to be paid for it when it comes to royalties and copyrights. And that's a whole nother world and topic for maybe another day.
Yeah.
But absolutely, man.
Yeah. I don't even want to breach the topic really today, but AI is here. And it's gonna
It
be more and
is.
more prevalent. And
Yes, it will.
musically that could lead to like, I don't know if it's gonna be a good thing or not, honestly. you know, where it could like take all kinds of riffs from different artists without like giving them any kind of props or credit or royalties and just be like, now some other artist can just throw this thing out and you're like, hold up, like isn't that the melody from this song combined with
Right.
that?
That's a really interesting idea because we all know AI is coming, right? And it's gonna probably drive a lot of mainstream music, or I would imagine. That's my guess.
hmm
And so it makes you wonder, yeah, what if AI generates a melody or a lyric or something that was already used
hmm
and you release it? Are you liable for that? Or is AI liable for that? Like, I don't know.
Sue the robot.
Yeah. Sue the robot.
That sounds
That's
like
right.
the name for your next EP, Sue the Robots.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. That's brilliant. Well, speaking of like copyrights and stuff,
Mhm.
have you ever heard of the website playphrase.me?
No. Mm-mm.
So I don't forget where I heard about this recently, but it's fascinating. It's a film sample website. And you can go on there and you type in any phrase and it'll pull up and show like 5 seconds back to back of every Hollywood film or whatever in its database that has that phrase or that word in it.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can type in happy go lucky, right? And then
Mhm.
next thing you know, it starts playing back to back scenes of every film that has the phrase happy go lucky in it
Ooh,
and the person saying it in that film with the scene. It's mind blowing and it's huge. Like the database is massive. I was
that's
really
crazy.
surprised.
That
Yeah.
is
So
crazy.
anybody looking for like samples of that kind of thing, that was a really cool site I recently found.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be good if you're looking for like a specific phrase. You're like,
Yeah.
even if you knew the movie name, but you just don't remember where in this 2-hour film, like the character
Right.
said that phrase. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I hadn't heard of that one.
Feel like that site's also probably gonna get a lot of people in trouble who don't know any better, who just start releasing a bunch of that in
Yeah,
their
no
tracks.
doubt.
So you've
Uh-huh.
been warned.
No doubt.
But yeah, there's another AI thing called openai.com. And they have like a feature called Chat GPT.
Mhm.
And it's like a machine learning AI thing that's like apparently one of the biggest right now growing. And you can type in, write me a 5-minute song with lyrics about like a breakup that I had, and it'll do it. And it's actually amazing how accurate and how like humanizing everything is that you give it to it. It's really
Ooh.
smart. Yeah.
Like I said, I got a lot of mixed feelings and opinions on the way that AI is going to be used, not in just music, but just globally, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think that there's always going to be that human component to it, though, when artists, like people want to have that personal connection with an artist they follow or love. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So, like, yeah, I think Spotify could start delivering songs to us and we might not know if a human made it or not. But I think that there's always going to be that human connection of like the energy you put into your music and connecting with your fans and followers that is never going to go away. It's like a meaningful experience.
I hope you're right.
I
Otherwise,
hope
one
so
day
too.
these machines will rule us all.
It'd be like Terminator, Music
Yeah, watch
Edition.
out, man. Yo, man, I
That's
was reading
funny.
some scary, scary stuff about like developments with like AI weaponry. Oh, man.
Oh,
You look
yeah,
into
that's a
that,
whole
man,
thing.
like it could be really, really bad.
I think I totally could see that. I think it could go
Mhm.
either way, though. In the same way, it could be saving lives,
Mm,
for some people who have to go in the battlefield like in person versus sending in a robot or a drone, you
mm.
know, taking out landmines or something could be saving some people's lives too. I think it could probably go either way, but
Hey,
yeah.
let's just give everybody some Ableton lessons instead, because if people are making music, they're gonna be happy. They don't got time for none of that nonsense. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that too. Well, so you
Yeah.
talked a little bit about inspiration and staying inspired and making music and all that
Mhm.
good stuff. So what are some like maybe more nerdy, like specific things that you might give as far as workflow for people out there listening?
Boy, just experiment. That's what I say. Like I feel like some producers they get a formula that worked for them on one song, and they just stick to that formula, and their music becomes really, really predictable, and it just feels and
Mm,
sounds like they're just making the same track over and over and over again. So, rather than get into like the technical side of things, I would just say no matter what you use, whether it's like some old keyboard from the 80s or it's some brand new plugin that just dropped this week, just mix up your flow. Like become aware of what your like normal habit is to make a track, and then just like switch the formula up. Like for
mm,
example, see some producers, they don't even talk about style. They're like, I usually produce like some 135 beats per minute, sometimes 137. Like, what does that even mean? So, like, let's say a producer, every time they sit down, they're like, I'm gonna set the master tempo to 135, and then I'm always gonna start with like programming my drums first. Then I'm gonna add a bass line. Then I'm gonna sample a chord and play a simple little progression with the sample chord. And then I'm gonna add like a vocal sample. Right. So maybe that worked on your first few tracks, that little formula. But after a while, what can happen is it starts to sound like the same track being made over and over again. Like I said, mix up your workflow. If you always start with the drums first, what happens if you start with a melody first? Maybe you're just walking down the street, melody comes to you, you hum it into your phone so you don't forget. Come home, play that in first, and then write your drums and your bass and your chords to support that melody. And don't even
mm,
think about like genre or tempo. Feel like when you do that, if you approach it the exact opposite direction than you always do, you can't help but get some different results that will surprise you. Because the
yeah.
last thing you want art to be is predictable. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like I get it. Like some people when their career is going, their fans expect it to sound a certain way, but music's infinite, and I feel like don't limit yourself and stick to like some formula that's already been done a billion times. Let's try something different. Mix up your own workflow, whatever
y-
tools you use.
yeah. Yeah, I find that's when my
Mm,
best happy accidents come out is when I'm mixing things up and I don't just stick to even the same exact sounds I'm using in every track too, you
Mm,
know, just like
yeah.
trying some new ideas, fresh ideas to kind of get some of that inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel that definitely. That happened to me recently. I started playing with the delay. It's an old Ableton Live pack called Dub Machines
Oh,
by
yeah.
Surreal Machines.
Yep, those are great.
I thought
Yeah.
of you because I started going through some of this. I was like, this reminds me of some stuff Kiva was like making back in the day. Like, because I know you're really into the whole dub electronic thing.
Mhm, yeah, those are cool. Wasn't it, like, Pure Magnetic that made those or Ableton?
So Dub Machines by Surreal
Oh,
Machines,
Surreal Machines, my bad. Yeah.
but then there's the magnetic presets in there.
That's okay, I'm mixing it up. I'm mixing up some
Yeah,
names here. But yeah, yeah, those dub machines are real cool, you know? Give you, like,
yeah,
a
the
lot of, like, the kinda like the old analog, reverb and tape delay stuff where it's got
yeah,
some little, like, weird imperfections and quirks to it that can be good for certain tracks, you know?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that was a new toy that I started playing with.
Yeah.
Uh, that was fun.
Another tip too would be, like, um, try to do things like don't try to do everything in the box. One thing that I'll do sometimes is I'm working in and outside of Ableton. So I might have like, let's say you program some drums in Ableton, you can make them sound really good with all these plugins and stuff inside the software. But sometimes I'll just bust things out, put it through an old mixing console, and then hit the effect sends on that to some old guitar pedals I've been working with since I was a teenager, and they just have like this dirty, unpredictable sound where you just
Yeah,
never quite know what it's gonna do. And I'll just record that input back in, and it just gives you like these like textures and this crazy thing where the machine is kind of coming alive that you just can't
yeah.
really get through software. So I like combining techniques and not just like only using like only software.
Yeah, I mean, analog just gives it a unique tone. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, for me personally, I
Yeah.
just think it just has its own rich, warm sound.
Yeah, it's cool blending like, the digital stuff with the analog. I love
Mhm.
that, just blending like the program stuff
Yeah,
and the human stuff. And to me, that's always
same.
like the real like the most interesting place to be musically for me.
Absolutely. I'm curious, like, I've been browsing the last year just different guitar pedals that I've been seeing. Do you have, like, a favorite that you play with?
So yeah, it's not new. It's not new, but I'll show you the one that I use mainly.
Yeah, pull it up.
Blow the dust off.
Apparently, it's been used a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the first one I have here, this is actually even at the time it was made, it was like one of the cheapest multi-effects pedals on the market. It's this little Digitech joint
Oh, yeah, yeah,
called the
yeah.
RP50. And
Yeah.
man, like a lot of guitar snobs would be like, "Oh, that thing is crap" or whatever. But man, I use it on a bunch of records, and I've had people all compliment me. They're like, "Oh, what synthesizer is that?" I'm like, "No, man, that's my guitar running through a pedal." And they're like, "Oh, word, that sounds amazing." So,
Yeah.
I've used this joint on a lot of tracks. And then around like 2007, an old friend of mine, this hip hop producer by the name of Gennaro Jarrell, shout out Gennaro, wherever you're at. He got signed to Lex Records out in the UK, and for the next couple years got to do like tours internationally of Europe and the UK, and he hired me to be the guitar player. So on the first tour we did, we arrived in the UK and our luggage arrived in like Spain.
Oh, oh,
And my
wow.
pedal, I learned a lesson that time. Like my pedal was in my suitcase that I checked. So we had to do the first show using like borrowed equipment, and the airline's trying to get us our stuff back. And meanwhile, like now we're up in like the capital of Scotland to play a show up there. And I went into this guitar shop in Scotland. And at the time, this was new. It was like this Boss ME50 multi effects pedal.
Yeah, that looks
I
fun.
just bought this joint. It's like 50, it's like the guts and brains are like 50 Boss pedals all in one. And you can like make your own presets and save them for instant recall. So I
Nice.
ended up finishing the tour with this. I ultimately, like near the end of the first tour, like I got my pedal back from the airline, got my toothbrush back and stuff, my socks. But yeah, man, this thing saved the tour, and it sounds great. And I love this thing not only for guitar, but a lot of the time I'll run like a Fender Rhodes through it, use like the funky wah wah and flangers, and I've run
Nice.
drums through it. Like sometimes I just hook this up on the sends and the returns on my analog mixing console, and we'll dub it out and just, have it on the desk right side the mixer, and be playing with all the delay times and feedbacks, and
Yeah.
really make this thing freak out and get some crazy screechy feedbacks and things like that. It would be hard to like recreate them with plugins, Yeah, this thing's
Get some happy accidents.
Yep. So yeah, this thing has definitely seen some miles, and it's different too, because like when you're touring, a lot of the time, like back in the day, like if you were in some like 90s or 80s rock band, like you probably have like your Marshall half stack or like a Fender Twin on stage, and they'd mic that up. And man, when I was doing this with this, like it was crazy. Like I didn't even have an amp. I just go straight to my monitor wedges, and I had already dialed in all my amp tones and all that kind of stuff. Is like crazy,
Nice.
like playing without an amp. You're just using like your monitors with this, and I don't know, we're good,
Yeah, I mean, the less I have to carry to a show, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For sure. I have to lug around a big amp.
Oh,
Get your workout in.
Totally.
For the week.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You played drums too, didn't you?
A little bit. I can hold it down on a kit. I'm a solid kit drummer, but I'm not like extraordinary. Like I can hold a pocket, but don't expect me to like, be like, no, man. I'm just gonna hold the groove,
The drums were my thing, and like I never needed a gym membership growing up, because I was like, when I was playing gigs all the time, man, I was carrying a 7-piece kit around, which is just dumb.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, it's like I don't know why I did that. Could have saved myself a lot of carrying.
Yeah,
but
I see you got the electronic kit back there. Which one is it?
I do. Yeah, that's to keep all of my housemates and neighbors sane, because I have a DW, but it's back in Indianapolis right now.
Yeah.
Until I get my own place. But yeah, it's the Roland TD30.
Nice.
And then I've got the Alesis. It's their newest drum pad, the Strike.
Nice.
The thing is really good. I like the built-in sounds are actually pretty solid. The presets that it comes with.
Man, can I tell you something? I love Alesis stuff. You deal with different musical snobs sometimes, and there's certain brands that have get their seal of approval, and other ones they're like, oh my gosh, I would never use that. Man, I don't care. I love me some Alesis. Can I show you
Same.
See this keyboard right here?
Yeah.
This has been like the main keyboard I use to write at least some part of every song I made for the last 12 years probably.
Really?
And I found this in the trash in New York City one night. It was a snowy night, walking home late at night with a full moon. It was trash night, and it had snowed. So there's piles of trash with snow on top with the moonlight. And I just see a ripped trash bag. I see this key sticking out. I was like, what is that? I tear the bag open, and it was all covered with somebody had spilled their coffee on the keys, and there was plaster dust on it. But I was like, yo, I bet it works, man. Let me take this thing home. I shined it up, cleaned it up, fired that bad boy up, and
amazing.
I've been using it ever since, It's got 5,000 sounds in it, 6,000 sounds in it, You can always find something to get inspired. It's just cool. Just boom, boom, boom. Just load up, just play. So yeah, I love me some Alesis.
You saved its life. You gave it a good home. It's happily ever after.
Totally. I bet there was some producer. I like to make up the backstory. This producer, he lived with this girl, right? He lived with his girlfriend. He got caught cheating. She's like, I'm throwing out all your shit when you go to work. And she just threw that shit in the trash.
Oh.
I'm like, why else would you throw out a nice synthesizer, man? You messed up, my boy.
Honestly, I don't even blame her at that point throwing that out. But one man's, what is it? One man's trash is another man's gold or something like that.
Yep. It was definitely my goal that night. I was riding home 2 in the morning with this dirty synth I pulled out of the garbage. I'm like, yo, thank you,
Best
God.
day ever. That's amazing. That actually happened. Me and June and Andrea. We were walking by some old shop that got shut down. It was a vinyl record shop in Brooklyn. It was after class
Oh
at Dub
man.
Spot. Yeah, and like somebody just threw probably close to 1,000 records
And you didn't
out on
call
the
me? Come on, Dan. I
on the
thought we were
street.
friends, man.
We were in Brooklyn. I should have called you. You're right. You're right. That was my bad. But yeah, we just started crate digging and walked out with like 10 or 15 records that day. That was a great time. We were just like kids in a candy store. We're like, who would throw all this out? There's some good stuff in there too.
Yeah, man. Yo, I used to find so many records that people would chuck out in New York. And my label, Adios Babylon Records, the motto at Adios Babylon Studios is that all vinyl is to be adopted and loved. So I don't care what it was, it's coming home with me. Like, walk by, like, it'd be the summertime, there'd be like the wastebasket full of trash and flies, and then there would be like a foot tall stack of like the best classical music ever written on vinyl.
Oh man.
Yo, knock the bugs out the way, be like, you're coming with me.
Give it a little shine.
Yo, another time I used to work as a graphic designer, and I wound up working at this place, could not stand. I was getting ready to quit. I was gonna quit that Friday, right? And just take the loss, like no paycheck, no unemployment. I was just like, I gotta get out of this place.
Must have been bad.
And then I came back from lunch 2 days before I was gonna quit. And the manager, he's like, hey, can I talk with you for a second? Like normally it's real busy this time of year, but it's just not that busy. And I gotta let some people go. And unfortunately, you were like the most recent hired. So, I gotta let you go. And I'm just thinking to myself, he's like, but don't worry, you'll be able to collect unemployment. So you could like finish up your shift or you could clock out now. And I was just like, I think I'll clock out now. You know what I'm saying?
Bye-bye.
I understand your position. If things get busy, give me a call. Clocked out, said goodbye to like the one cool person there, didn't say anything to all the rest of those assholes.
Yeah.
And
I've had jobs like that.
bro, I walked out into the sunshine on Canal Street, and across the street, there was like 15 milk crates of records somebody was throwing out. I'm like, what?
The heavens open.
I just went and cherry picked them and took like 2 crates because that was all I could carry. And I'm just laughing. I'm like, yo, I was going to quit this place and not get money. And I just got fired, and I get unemployment for 6 months. And I just found like a couple crates of records. I'm going to go like work on some albums.
Yeah.
That was it. I never worked
Amazing.
like another job like that ever in my life.
Christmas came early that year.
Yep. Sometimes I call that getting a high five from the universe to let you know you're on the right path,
Yeah. I've had a few high fives like that. That's amazing. What a good story. So anybody out there, if you hate your job, you should just quit and then go crate digging. Yeah.
Or
Life will
get
get
fired.
better.
You
Or
didn't hear
get
that from
fired,
me.
yeah.
Not the kind of stuff your parents would tell you, but sometimes that's the
That's
best
right.
thing that can happen. Start a whole new
Hey.
career.
Man, that happened to me at Chipotle. This isn't a story I tell very often, but I got fired, not because I tried, but I ended up sneezing in a burrito. Do you ever just like have to sneeze? You ever sneeze? You ever like have to sneeze? You don't see it coming, like it just happens real quick before you can prepare for your shoulder or something. And it was free burrito day. And we were short staffed. There's nobody there. There's a line out the door. And I'm like, screw this, man. I hate my job. Next thing I know, I sneeze. Just happens to be like this debris that goes straight down the burrito I'm making. I look up, nobody sees it. And I was healthy. I was like a healthy, 19-year-old.
No.
So I was like, just kind of rolled it up, pushed it down the line.
No.
Next day I come into work. Manager's like, I need you to see something. Calls me in the back office, pulls up the video feed, and like you could see my face in mid sneeze. And I already knew it was coming. And that's why I just started laughing. I lost it. They didn't think it was as funny as I did.
Oh,
but
man.
that was my last day. And it was one of the best things that happened because I spent more time. I didn't make a lot of money that year, but I had more time to play drums and practice piano and all the other things I enjoy doing more than rolling burritos. So it worked out. That's my getting fired story.
I'm never eating a burrito again unless I make it myself.
Yeah. I promise I don't sneeze in people's food anymore. That's something I don't practice. So, but
That is
But yeah,
crazy.
I do wanna talk about your label. You
Mhm.
mentioned Adios Babylon.
Mhm.
What made you start that? I'm just curious.
So, I feel like when you're creating stuff, a lot of the time people are looking outwards for acceptance and outward for validation. Somebody to tell you your music
Mm,
is good and
yeah,
you should put it out with us.
yeah,
Now, I made a lot of music where sometimes I was even like getting to rub shoulders with people that had already like made it big in the industry and they'd hear what I'm doing and they're like, man, I love what you do. I don't know how we would market it, but I love what you do. I just said, you know what? I can still release music with some other labels if I want to, but I already signed off on this music. I know that I did my thing on it to the best of my ability. And this was what I wanted to say artistically. And I don't need anybody else's permission or approval to put it out. So I just started my own label and just started putting it out. And I was gonna say too, like it's more work, you know, than maybe if you got signed to a bigger label that had all these resources they could put behind you. But you're in control. You don't have anybody trying to tell you to like make your music different than it is. Also, another thing that I saw too was saw some friends that did get signed to different labels. And when they signed the contract, it's like, okay, your music, your record's done. We're gonna put this into our release schedule. It's coming out in 3 months. Be like 2 years later, their record was shelved and still hadn't come out. And because they're under contract, they can't release it any other way. The label
oh
just
man,
like shelved their record and it never saw the light of day. And I was like,
damn,
no, that's not happening to me. So,
yeah,
I just feel like it's really important to claim your power as an artist and you can collaborate with people. You can collaborate and put some of your music out on different labels and other sources. But I felt that it was really important for me to have my own like spiritual musical homeland. And that's what Adios Babylon was all about. Like the artists I was working with, music that I was making, like it's up to me. When I say it's done, it's done. When I want to
hmm
put it out, it gets put out, and
yeah,
maybe some of the stuff might have gone further if it had had a major label with their money, like promoting it and hyping it and reaching more masses with it. There's definitely some stuff that could have had that potential, to reach a lot of people and really hit. Didn't happen that way for me, but I made sure that I've always got the music out to the people. It's available. It's out there. You might have to dig for it. It's not going to be pushed, pushed in your face on MTV or, anything like that, but it's out there. And ultimately, I can just feel good knowing that, I did like music that was authentic to whatever I was feeling at that moment when I created those records. And it's just out there. That's my legacy. It's out there. So, yeah, man,
yeah,
that's why I started. Just it's important to have that empowerment and you can listen to other people's advice, but ultimately as an artist, like you should know when something's done. You should know when it's ready to release and you should believe in your own work. You don't need somebody else to like tell you it's good or not.
yeah. Yeah, man, that's really well said. And, having that control over your own music and the direction of where your art's going is really nice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of artists that sign off to labels, they don't always get that luxury.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for some people
so
it really works out and
yeah,
other people, it doesn't, And I've heard about bands where, when like alt rock was like really, really big in the mid 90s, late 90s still, a
yeah,
band might get signed, they get like $1 million like upfront to sign with this label. And they're like, wow, we made it. Like they're partying and the label is like hooking them up with studio time with the best engineers and doing a video shoot with like some top videographer, getting like a slot on like the Vans Warp Tour, getting tour nationally and they're just like, wow, we made it. We're big time now. We're rock stars. But they don't realize that labels actually just fronting them the money out of that like cash advance. It's actually just being like a big credit card they got to pay back.
mm,
And
yeah,
after like about a year or so, if they haven't recouped and turned a profit, label is going to drop them and they're going to owe the label all that money. So I've heard tales about these bands where for like 1 year, they thought they were living the dream life that they were big rock stars. And then like a year later, like they're kicked out. They're kicked off the label, and they owe like $1 million to the label, and they got to declare
Yeah.
bankruptcy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
Like it could be
Yeah.
bad. You know what I'm saying? So,
That's it's a bad day.
I mean, for some people it works out, in their favor,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
Yeah.
I never had any major labels like trying to step to me like that, so I never had that problem. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. Yeah.
Could be a blessing too.
Yeah.
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 For sure. Well, that's interesting. I mean, you've got some other people on your label too. I noticed that you've got some other artists. I was listening to the playlist on Spotify today,
Mm.
and you got some talented people in the lineup too. Do you have any special plans, or like where do you see the future of Adios Babylon going?
So listen, I write a lot of music, and right now in the to finish folder, like it's around like 100 rhythms right now, about 100 songs, like.
And you got me beat. I got to catch up.
And um, so I have like a whole next album like that's just being sealed up right now that'll probably drop later this year. The question with some of these tracks though is vocalist or instrumental. So
Mm,
like the most recent solo record, Seven Heavens, that I put out, even though there's like one track in particular on there that could be a really nice vocal version with the right reggae artist on it, decided to keep this whole one instrumental and just let the music take you on your own journey without it telling you anything
mm,
verbally. Let the music take you on that journey. But I have a lot of other tracks where when I was writing them, I could already hear a singer flowing on it. And so it's just a question of finding like some of the right singers with the right vibes
mm,
where the chemistry is good and all of that. So, it's funny, like there's a lot of singers, especially in reggae, that will do work for hire music for just about anybody. Like there's a lot of legendary singers down in Jamaica where maybe they were real famous in the 70s or the 80s and they still work. They still can tour a little bit. But
mm.
they make a pretty good living just recording and voicing like rhythms for people. Like some Japanese sound system might be like, hey, we'll pay you $1,000 to like record a special for us. And these guys will have like a steady lineup of like dub plate voicing work coming in from overseas for all these different reggae sound systems worldwide. And so they actually make a pretty good living voicing, and they don't care who it is. Like as long as like the money clears or whatever, like they're gonna work on it. So,
Hmm.
it's cool that you can have access to, some different singers if you have the right budget. But for me, like all the projects that I've done with vocalists, where it was me directly on my label, you know, they weren't paying me for studio time or production. I wasn't paying them for lyrics. We worked together because there was like a brotherhood or sisterhood. It was just a vibe. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
vibe was so natural that we might have started with one song and we're like, man, it was great working with you. Let's do another song. Oh man, let's do another one. Before you know it, we have a whole album. So,
Yeah.
right now, I know a lot of different talented vocalists. I feel like a few of them, if I showed them a few of these new tracks, you'd have to see how it hits them and see if they feel inspired or not. You never know with
Mm,
music. Like, there's times where I've written tracks specifically for a certain artist in a style that I think that they will really, really flow with, and I'll show it to them and like, oh, that's cool. Show me something else. And then I'll show that same track to somebody else, and there's like, give me a piece of paper, and they just start writing the whole song right there. And so you
yeah.
just never know with this music. You know what I mean? There's certain songs where I wrote it for a certain singer. They heard it and they took a pass on it. And then another singer hears it and like they write something beautiful on it. So who knows? You know?
Yeah.
And
So at what point,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, at what point do you typically share the project with the vocalist? Because for me, sometimes it's that delicate balance whenever I've worked with vocalists of like, okay, this is just an idea that I'll send them.
Hmm.
And, or do I send them, the track when it's like, say, 70% mixed down, and then let them just throw down on top of it? Like, what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on what project it is. So, some of the songs, like me and the artist were sitting there in the room, like writing it together, like putting in equal energy. But then right now, like I do a lot of production and mixing work for some different reggae artists. So there's some friends of mine here in Miami. They got a label called Galaxy Soundstation Records. Shout out to Ricky D and Kailas. And all the stuff that we've been doing on Galaxy is in like the Jamaican tradition of having a rhythm album. Any of the listeners don't know what that means. Like you have a hot instrumental in Jamaica, they call that a rhythm, not rhythm, rhythm. And
Yeah.
the way that music copyright law was in Jamaica, at least in the past, it wasn't as strict as it is here in the United States. So if you made a hot instrumental and you put out a version of that song with one of your singers on it, and that became a hit, by the next weekend, there might have been like 5 other studios that used the same instrumental and then they put their artists on top of it. And so now instead of having like just one hit single over this beat, now you got like 5 or 10 or 20. And
Oh
so,
wow.
especially like when dancehall took off, like they're pressing the music on 45s. If you were a dancehall DJ, when a new rhythm dropped, you could go to the record shop and come out with like a stack this tall with like 25 different versions of the same instrumental with like 25 different singers on it, right? And so as you're a
Wow.
DJ,
That's
you do what you call juggle those rhythms. You just play like maybe the first 16 bars of this one that features Capleton, and now you seamlessly cut to the next one. Now you got Sizzler, go for 16 bars. Now you cut, and it's like, Anthony B or some other like famous artist.
that's wild.
So in that tradition, the stuff that I've been assisting with production and doing mixing and mastering for my brethren at Galaxy Sound, they've all been rhythm albums. So it will be one instrumental, and then it's going to feature anywhere from like 8 to 12 different vocal artists on it, male and female. And it's really kind of amazing when you have a hot beat to hear how each artist interprets it. And even though it's the same track, some of these things that ends up, each one really feels distinct and different, you know? So
Mm,
we're actually sealing up the next rhythm for Galaxy right now. I'm doing some mixing work on that. And
cool.
it should be coming out I'm hoping like within the next couple months. Like I'm finishing the mixes and the mastering right now, about halfway through that project. But that one's
Right
gonna be
on.
beautiful, man. Like I don't wanna like speak on it too much or brag and boast or whatever, but we got some really nice artists on it, including this one legendary, iconic Jamaican vocalist by the name of Horace Andy. He did a lot of work with Massive Attack that some people might
Oh
know about,
wow.
but he's been
Yeah.
in the reggae game since the 70s and just has a very iconic voice. And
Awesome.
they were able to voice him over the rhythm down in Jamaica and send me the stems and to mix that right now alongside like a lot of other great artists. Shout out to Perfect
Yeah.
Giddimani and Ernest
Yeah.
Wilson, Ray Darwin, a
That,
bunch of other like very, very talented vocalists that are on this rhythm. So
that's dope, man. Congrats. I love that.
thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. You've worked with a lot of really interesting people too. I mean, sharing stages with like Lee Scratch Perry, a legend,
Yep.
and Shaggy, Jay Z, I grade Dub.
Shout out to Tippy, St. Croix. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of really great legends. So
Yeah.
that's really cool, man. And I love the progression of the new album that you released, Seven Heavens. Everybody go check that out too if you haven't listened to it or you don't know who Kiva is. It still has your sound, but it's very different, I feel like, from a lot of the stuff I've heard from you before.
Mhm.
In a good way. I
I
dig it.
appreciate. Hey, I gotta show you something too. Check this out.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just showing you a little artwork, man. Like I started doing some metal etching at the end of the year last year, and
Yeah.
was able
Is
to
that the album
was
art?
able to take the album art, transfer it onto the metal.
That's so cool.
But yeah, people, if you're interested in hearing, some of the music that I've produced on my label Adios Babylon, you can check us out on Bandcamp. Look for Adios Babylon on Bandcamp. Still got the physical
There it
product if
is.
you need the CD, you know what I'm saying, as well as the
That's
digital
good.
and a lot of the other projects on there too. This is another one of the albums here that came out the previous year. This one's called Odium.
Oh, I love that. It's like a heart with some symbolism in it. It's
Yeah,
cool.
man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, man, just just keep putting out the kind of music that I feel needs to be heard, and try to
Yeah.
not repeat myself and just do a different, keep things progressing, you know what I'm saying? Not just be like, oh, this worked 15 years ago, so I'm just gonna keep making a record that sounds like that. Like
Right.
keep the progression, whatever's happening in your life, the good or the bad, like it can all be put into your music and transform that energy into something positive,
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I totally agree. And I appreciate your time, man. I know you're busy, you've got stuff going on, but I think that might be a great way to end this podcast with that. And yeah, where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to hit
Yeah.
you up?
So if you visit my website, it's adiosbabylon.com. And once you're there, you're going to see links to all the other social media, Instagram, and all that business. If you're already on IG, it says Kiva_NYC on Instagram. But yeah, check out Adios Babylon. That has links to the music shop. If you're interested in learning Ableton and music production and performance, I'm also an Ableton Certified Trainer, and I offer private lessons to anyone worldwide online. So you can learn about that on the website as well. And just
Yeah.
keep up to date with like some of the new releases and new musical projects that we're creating over here. So
Yeah. I can vouch for the Ableton training as well. It's from personal experience. So
yeah, I love
he's
seeing what you've been doing with it, man. Yeah.
dude, thank you. Yeah. So you're the trainer of trainers, really. So
Just trying to
love it.
play my link in the chain, my role, you know what I'm saying? So it's a beautiful
Absolutely.
thing, like being able to just like take the thing that I'm most passionate about and share that love with other people that are like interested in and deserving of that knowledge. And I love just seeing
Mm.
like how like each person like ends up using that, and like now you guys are out in your corner of the world, your corner of the universe, like making noise and raising the vibration and, passing
Yeah,
it along to the next generation behind you. You know what I mean? So
that's right. Sharing the wealth. Yeah, I
keep the
feel like
vibes alive.
that's right, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, well, Kiva, man, it was so good seeing you. It's been far too long, and definitely hit me up if you're in the Denver hood. I'd love to see your face in real life again.
Definitely, man.
So,
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And, congratulations with everything that's been going right. Ableton certified trainer now, and got your school and your
well,
business going, and, making a
thanks,
lot of
man.
great music. I'm really, really happy to see like you're putting this knowledge to good use and passing it along to, the next generation behind you too.
Yeah, well, I owe a lot of it to you. So I appreciate you, man. Enjoy the rest of your week. Much love. And yeah, I'll hit you up when this episode goes
Hey,
out.
thanks again, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Have a good week.
You too. You too. Shout out to everybody tuned into the podcast too, worldwide. Salute you.
Yeah, much love. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bless.
All right, later. Peace. Hey, big thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. Once again, make sure you give Kiva a like and a follow on the socials. And stay tuned for new episodes coming out on Tuesdays for the podcast. Once again, if you want to sign up to the newsletter, then you'll be the first to get new episodes, plus some other fun content and future toys to play with, like Ableton Live downloads, sample packs, whatever. Just do that by going to liveproducersonline.com. That's liveproducersonline.com/newsletter, and can hook you up there. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I will see you next time. Peace.